In this episode of Supply Chain Now Radio, Jack Allen, Senior Director of Logistics for Cisco, discusses how to survive and win in the evolving digital supply chain using augmented reality, blockchain, rapid prototyping, and sustainability.
We welcome a bit of a rock and roll star in the supply chain world, Mr. Jack Allen, Senior Director of Logistics at Cisco, a world-class technology company with a big presence here in Atlanta, the hashtag supply chain city. We had to get that in for Ben Harris.
At least once.
At least once, probably 17 more times.
Hashtag bingo we play here.
Bingo board here for that. So good morning, Jack.
Good morning.
Welcome again.
Thank you.
There's no shortage of major technology breakthroughs rippling through supply chain and beyond, right? Digital warehouses, connected transport, data foundation, standards and protocols. We talked about some of that pre-show. All of these and more are changing the face of supply chain. So how do companies survive?
Yeah, well, it's a really good question. In fact, a lot of companies don't survive. If you look at the latest stats, depending on how far out you go, 50%, 80% of Fortune 500 companies are going to be wiped out, right? They're going to be wiped out because they don't adapt well to change. So the question is, if you're running a big company or even a little company, how do you change quickly enough to be able to survive that onslaught? What we're seeing right now, change in the supply chain and in the digital arena is happening more quickly than you can ever imagine. So we started trying to transform logistics at Cisco. By the way, we're the network Cisco, not the food Cisco.
That's right.
So probably 2.5, 3 years ago, and when I started, nobody was talking about augmented reality. Within, 6 months, suddenly everybody was talking about AR. Look at blockchain. Blockchain was not a topic of interest probably a year ago, and now all the big logistics companies are playing with blockchain. All the supply chain companies are playing with blockchain. I mean, it's happening so fast. And, companies and organizations have to be able to ride that wave of technology change. They have to be able to adapt more quickly, which means that the old ways of doing business are still important, but there's new skills that have to be developed. How do you do rapid prototyping instead of trying to create, God solutions that are analyzed for 5 years and then you implement? By the time you learn what that solution looks like, you need a new solution, right? So people who are quick, people who are adaptable, and companies that are willing to change. Logistics fundamentally, in my belief, is as much an information industry as it is a brick and mortar plane and train industry. And I think the industry has been very slow to recognize that. Supply chain and logistics as a whole are very disruptive industries, and they've driven massive culture shifts, massive city shifts, and country shifts as countries learn new ways of getting goods to the market as far back as the East India Company, So it's worth paying attention to, and we have to be willing to change.
Yeah, how do you expect these large enterprises to be able to discern which is the fad and which is the trend when the technology changes so rapidly?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think what we're trying to do is adapt quickly and try a lot of stuff. And we're trying to get ahead of the wave. So, will AR be big in a warehouse? Could be. We think it's got a lot of promise. Might it be something that, we spent a year or two on and turned out not to be so valuable? Yeah, it could be. So we try a lot of stuff. We see what starts to work. We look for the big successes, and we try and listen a lot. So, I'm on Twitter all the time.
Yes.
I'm looking for trends. I go to conferences, and we just need to pay attention, right?
And you have to build in failure and accepting failure in order for this to work, right?
Totally. Yeah, if you're not willing to fail, you're going to fail. I mean, it's.
But that's a shift in a lot of large enterprises where there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of politics, and people are concerned for their own jobs, where they're less likely to take big risks.
Yes, absolutely. And so supply chain at Cisco is a bunch of what we call high verifies, right? And I'm my personality type's more on a high innovator. When we turned on our innovation lab in Houston, we knew we needed a space. We didn't exactly know what we were going to do in that space. And frankly, it caused a lot of my peers and my bosses' heads to explode. They're like, what do you mean you don't know what the ROI is? What do you mean you don't know what you're going to test? What do you mean, and you have to be willing to do that. And it is a mind shift, right? And it's a culture shift for a lot of corporations. Right?
And that's why, what'd you say, 80% aren't going to be around?
Correct. Yeah, because that's a hard leap for people to make. It's almost a leap of faith.
Yeah, you have to reward failure in a way, but corporations are built to penalize and punish failure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
So with all this innovation activity, is there one breakthrough technology that y'all have really seen a real practical application with some tangible return thus far that you can share with us?
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to think of probably some of the sexiest stuff. I mean, we are doing the AR. We're very high on that. And I'll tell you why. It's not just the fact that coupling vision and voice gives you a much more effective, much more high quality pick in a warehouse. We actually think that by taking the access points and being able to watch where people go, not visually, but electronically, okay, we know that this device is in this aisle at this point in time. You can do a couple of things. You can change the warehouse from, let's face it, when I grew up, which was a long time ago. We don't need to get into that.
1982. We always pick out a year in the 80s.
The warehouse process, the tools are faster, but we really haven't changed from a batch process, right? It needs to become an agile process, coupling that data of where people are and where stuff is to what you need. So being able to self-optimize the warehouse based on seeing where the people are going and what they're picking, and have the warehouse learn to where to put the product up. Being able to drop picks to people opportunistically, being able to know that this carton is inbound and you need that for that order and it should go right out the door right away. We think that coupling of location-based technology and visual technology is going to be pretty hot. And preliminary tests indicate that it is, but we've got to get things like the warehouse management system vendors to be able to integrate that data stream into processes that actually make sense.
So Jack, we could literally, I'd love to pick your brain for several hours on technology alone, but
yeah, that would bore you.
Cisco's doing a lot of really neat things when it comes to digitization. So, but let's transition a little bit into talent, because I know you're real passionate about this topic as well. So with this change that the industry is going through, how is that impacting the type of talent we're looking for in supply chain?
Yeah, so if I can get a commercial in for diversity now, I'm married to a Latina. She was a woman in a male-dominated profession, IT, male-dominated industry, oil, male-dominated country, Venezuela. So she's tough as nails, and she's kind of opened my eyes to some of the opportunities. I think that the traditional ideas of talent is a group of people who looks like us and thinks like us, tying into the innovation thing as well. I think that for the future, we have to be able to look at people who are different from us, people from different cultures, people who look different, and people who have different ideas. So instead of trying to shut down, maybe that guy who's a high improvise instead of a high verify, you need to embrace that difference. And we need to look in places that we've never looked before for talent. So, and we actually think that benefits the whole industry. I had the pleasure of seeing the Facebook chief information security officer talking about cybersecurity at a conference. And his point was exactly that. He's like, look, if you want to stop hacking, you need to have people who think differently. You're not going to have people who think differently if they all look the same, if they all come from the same background. And I think the same thing is true for the whole supply chain. We have a great opportunity in this space to capture all that talent that's out there that we're not looking at before the other guys do. And maybe we won't be one of the 50%.
So Cisco clearly is committed to creating that diverse workforce that mirrors your customers, right?
Exactly.
Different walks of life.
What do you do to grow your own, to kind of incubate the talent at earlier ages?
Yeah, cool. I'm glad you asked that. A couple of things. We're big fans of Georgia Tech, right? So we actually get a lot
Who's
of...
not?
Who's not?
Yeah.
How much better is Georgia Tech than Clemson?
Georgia Tech is...
Big one.
Oh, man. Shy out. No engineers leave from Clemson.
Really?
But
Well, diversity is important, so you should get a couple.
I should get some Clemson people. Probably some football players.
That's right. Dabo can come in and talk about culture, but
Now, how are you addressing it at a younger age? Because that's where we talk about this, Elba, all the time, is we have to get the younger people at least considering supply chain as a path.
Right. So we have a cool thing called a multi-company rotation, right? Where we're actually, and we believe we're the first ones in the world to do this, where we take co-ops, and I'm sure you guys know about the co-op program, but maybe the listeners don't. So a co-op is somebody who goes to school, goes to work, goes to school, goes to work. So every other quarter, they're either in school or they're working for a company.
Wow.
Most companies will rotate within departments. We're actually rotating across companies in our supply chain. So a co-op for us may go to Jabil for a quarter, and then they may come to Cisco, and then they may go to Schenker for a quarter, and then they may come to Cisco. And then they, we're actually talking about even sending them to our customers so they'll get a broad-based perspective of our entire supply chain end to end with all of our partners like UPS. Second thing that we do as a family is we coach robotics. We're trying to bring in more girls, more different types of people. And it's so heartwarming. We had this little group of robotic kids. A couple of them were ADD. We were going to a scrimmage and we were talking to them about, their strengths and their weaknesses. And all these kids highlighted, hey, we don't get along very well. We swear at each other. We say horrible things, etc. And they actually took a trophy in this thing called gracious professionalism, which is how they work together, how they show up in front of the judges. I thought I was going to cry, right? Because, you see these kids develop leadership. And the cool thing is that when you start with non-traditional technologists like girls and like, diverse talent and all that, and they say, oh, I don't have to be a fashion designer. I could be a product designer.
Right.
I like engineering. Oh, I like math.
I like supply chain.
I like supply chain.
Because they use the technology. They're using all the stuff in their day-to-day life. It's just they're not connecting the dots that they can be part of the solution and create the stuff and not just consumers of it.
No, it's super exciting. And it's fun to watch these kids. We had our latest group and they decided they want to build battle bots, which is sort of more, more a boy thing.
Cool
right?
stuff.
So the girls in our group were like, okay, I want to build the robot, but I don't want to fight the robot because I don't want my beautiful robot to get destroyed.
And then maybe we should rethink of how you do those things to include more people to give them an outcome that they desire,
So we need to do a lean in circle for the robots first.
Yeah,
of all.
that's
There you go.
But secondly, real quick, and I want to get into some of the talent strategy that Cisco uses, but speaking of growing their own and creating this awareness, we have now Supply Chain 101, which is a program that Apex Atlanta and Supply Chain Now Radio has been implementing out across elementary schools in Georgia. We have presented to almost 400 fourth and fifth graders just through an hour-long awareness enrichment program, really covering what is supply chain, what are some of the careers that you can find in supply chain, who are some of the leading companies that use armies of supply chain, right? And to your point, it is so rewarding to see these light bulbs literally go off right in front of you as you're just engaging and sharing and in many cases providing some open doors of opportunity that many of these kids have not heard about or haven't been shared with. So, Matt,
Scott, are you talking about UPS as an awesome place for supply chain careers?
Absolutely.
All right.
Just down the street, the global headquarters.
I think everybody here will have raised their hand.
So, want to give Matt Markham a big kudos real quick, too, because he came out to Lockheed Elementary School, spent a whole day, as busy as Matt is, traveling the whole state of Georgia to make sure this economic engine it continues to ramp up. He spent the whole day with us. We reached almost 100 fifth graders that day up in Marietta, and very rewarding. So appreciate your service there. It's all about action.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. That was probably one of my favorite days that I've had working here. And that's what's going to make our economic engine keep going is those kids and where they go in the future.
That's right. Upstream workforce development. Thank you. So Jack, getting back to talent, and let's talk about some of your pillars related to your talent strategy. And let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, basically we have 3 pillars. So plan and design, right? How do we set up the environment to where we can build the best talent, we can plan it, and we can design both our site strategy and our people strategy so they work together. Second pillar is attract and retain. How do I bring in the best and the different and the most successful talent, and then how do we keep them engaged, keep them active. We're doing a lot of innovative work on, engagement and employee engagement. We have a really cool tool called TeamSpace that keeps everybody engaged in what they're doing. And the last one is, how do we enable and develop? So I just got back from a great supply chain program. I actually believe Cisco is one of the best in the world in terms of training supply chain leadership. And believe it or not, Scott, it was in Chicago, and it was set around the concept of improv, right? And the idea is that if you're not going to be one of those 15% of the companies, you have to be able to improvise.
Wow.
You have to be able to, get thrown into the middle of the pool and learn how to swim. And so, it was pretty exciting. In previous sessions for our leadership directors and above, we've done things like storytelling, and it seems a little wonky and outside the pale, but actually it's how you build your leadership and how you teach them new things so that you can build the supply chain of tomorrow.
Well, improv helps forces you to say yes. So
exactly.
How do you guys handle that? Executives usually like to say no.
So the most hilarious part was when we had the IT guy and the finance guy, the HR lady up in front of everybody. The finance guy we thought was going to be extremely stiff. And he turned out to be hilarious, right?
Okay.
So,
he was holding it all in.
It can be done.
He was holding it all in. It worked.
So you're talking about improvising, storytelling, some of these traits that you're looking to develop in your team. So from a supply chain standpoint and how the talent needs have evolved considerably, what else would you add to that in terms of traits you'd prioritize in today's supply chain practitioner?
Well, we talked about it, I think, before we started. You have to be willing to fail, and you have to be willing to allow yourself to have a bad experience, because if you're not willing to fail, then you're not willing to go big, and you're not willing to try. And what ends up happening is those little failures that you learn from set the stage for the big success. If you're not willing to create those little failures, not only will you not have the big success, you'll probably have a big failure.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. But all the things that we talked about are kind of orthogonal to the traditional supply chain thinking, and it's hard for standard supply chain guys to wrap their heads around it, right?
And that goes back to the importance of diversity, because that's where you're going to find the people that are willing to push the edges, and that's where the next breakthrough is going to come.
Absolutely.
Great point, Lee.
Yep, absolutely.
So can you talk to where would you rank the ability to work well within a team? Where would you rank that?
So I think that's critical. And I think we're all trying to learn better how to allow the team to think, and how to allow the team to self-organize and do things. That was also one of the lessons in the recent leadership thing. So it was about, how do you not make the mistake as a leader of over controlling, and also how do you allow yourself to think super broadly, right? We saw some examples of people that had done things that were, by most lights, completely impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of it also starts with, as a team, can you challenge yourselves to do something that's never been done before, and then everybody's telling you can't be done?
Mm. So when you talk about broader thinking, are you also referring to bigger picture thinking? So folks that not only see their actions, but understand the upstream and downstream ramifications of the decisions that they make.
Yeah, business acumen becomes critical. I think that nowadays the idea of supply chain is, somebody you keep in the basement, and, maybe you feed them a package every now and then, that, it just doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
We need businessmen and women that can actually look at the whole business and figure out how to add value to the whole business, not just their particular silo.
Yeah, 1982. Again, that's the year we're going to pick on today.
That's it.
Yeah,
all right.
1982. Terrific. Talent and leadership is two topics that does not get enough attention, despite some of the challenges we know that are out there in the marketplace. So let's shift gears. One final segment that we really want to dive in with, Jack, is sustainability. So Cisco had a little bit of big news in January, as it was ranked the #1 most sustainable company in the world, according to Barron's Magazine, correct?
Yes.
And Jack, all because of Jack.
Yeah, that's it. No, but I do have to take credit about 96% of our carbon savings. So I think we're at 627 million metric tons.
Wow.
Came from logistics, right? Now that's both a good thing and a bad thing because that means that we were a big part of the problem, right? but it also means we've been a big part of the success thanks to partners like UPS. The other thing that just came out at Davos, I don't know if you guys heard it. We heard it loud and clear, and we're a little scared and a little excited and willingness to fail, Scott. Our CEO said, hey, Cisco's making a pledge that we want to get 100% of our product back. And so my phone started lighting up with all my peers who say...
Sounds like a Jack problem.
Yeah, exactly. How could Chuck say this? And I'm like, well, Chuck didn't call me up and ask me about it. So, the idea of circular economy, which I think is going to be... I say it's as transformational as when people learn to pull bronze out of the, or ore out of the ground and turn it into something. The idea that you can keep looping the economy back upon itself. I think it's going to be hugely transformational. It's going to change the way we do everything, right? So we're trying to learn for us what that looks like.
Yep.
I agree. Reverse logistics is huge, right?
Yeah, especially in
closed loop. Yeah.
Yeah. We're tracking together, Elba. Because Jack serves on the board of the Reverse Logistics Association, right?
Yep.
And having had some conversations with Tony Sciarota.
Yeah.
Close. We both talked about him. He educated me really on how the body of knowledge on reverse logistics and how best practices. You don't hear nearly as much as we need to know and hear about what companies are doing to really.
Yeah, some of the stats are startling. Like the e-commerce vendors, they're seeing returns of anywhere from 30 to 50%. So not only are you seeing the spike in outbound traffic because of, all the e-commerce and the Amazons and all the daily deliveries. My house looks like a shipping depot sometimes. But you've got the returns, right? And so it's a double whammy on the traffic. And then those returns come in, and then what do you do with them? Right. You certainly don't want to send them to a landfill, so you got to figure out the highest and best use. It's a new world. I've got a funny stat for you that's related to your first topic about freight. So I was talking to one of the heads of a German logistics company, and he explained to me that this past holiday season, those fidget spinners that your kids have? They shipped 35,000 tons of fidget spinners in 1 month. Wow. I mean,
can't even.
It blows your mind.
I think many of that went to my house.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it ties back to the Toys R Us story, is that as shopping in brick and mortar shift and people buy online, they still want to try stuff on and try different things. Yes. So it's now built into the process. It used to be online, you would just buy what you wanted and keep what you wanted. But now a lot of younger people especially buy several, keep the one they want and send the rest back.
And by the way, we've got to get this figured out because retail sales is still predominantly done in brick and mortar.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's like 12% of sales are online.
Right, that's what people don't realize.
Think of all those packages, containers, and the reverse and the forward. We're in trouble.
And barely anybody's using online. Imagine if it was flipped and it was 80% online, what it would look like.
Absolutely. Lots of opportunity. I was in a big box store Sunday with 2 buggies of stuff as my wife was ordering things delivered straight to the house. So she's got to train me up on the use of this e-commerce rather than lugging huge things of dog food all on my own and home and stuff. So huge opportunities. But nevertheless, reverse logistics will continue to be more and more important. So committing to Cisco, 100% of your products getting returned?
Yep, that's what we're committing to.
Is there a certain year that what target date for that?
So to me, I consider it to be kind of an aspirational goal. And, we really need to start with the math of, okay, what does that even mean? I know I've got $30 billion of product out there right now that's last day of service.
Wow.
What would getting 30 billion even look like and how would I measure it? And
UPS could do it.
Yes. Can you please ship that UPS?
Well, it really kidding aside, it takes great partners, right?
It does take great partners. Yeah.
So
right. Like no one company is going to solve this. This is going to be
No,
the
it's
ecosystem.
Absolutely.
actually, we're going to solve it in this room today.
That's it. Well, the next show is the reverse logistics show, right?
Yes, absolutely. Lee, we're tracking together. Love that. But again, Jay, as busy as you stay, Jack, I know you just got in from St. Louis and you're probably headed to Pacific Rim next week. Really appreciate you spending time with us. You hosted Apex Atlanta's Executive Roundtable a few months back, focused on digital logistics. That was well received. I think Elb and Matt were both joined us for that. But thanks for your team. Thanks for what you do. And thanks for helping to push the industry forward.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been fun.
You bet. We'll do it again.